My cheeks were on fire. It was a searing, prickling heat that spread from my face down my neck, a physical manifestation of the humiliation washing over me. 200 pairs of eyes, all belonging to friends and family who had known me my entire life, were fixed on me. They blurred into a single, monstrous entity of judgment as my cousin Lila's laughter, amplified and distorted by the microphone, echoed through the grand reception hall. Before we dive in, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below telling me, where in the world are you watching from? I love seeing how far this story travels. From the small, elevated stage, she stood beaming, a vision in white silk and diamonds, next to her handsome groom. Her finger, adorned with a delicate wedding band, was pointed directly at me, a weapon taking aim. And of course, we can't forget my dear cousin Haley, she slurred, her voice thick with celebratory champagne and malice. She paused for dramatic effect, letting the silence hang in the air. The pathetic, unwanted mess of our family. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride, right, Haley? A smattering of uncomfortable laughter rippled through the wealthy crowd. My silence, though, wasn't the surrender she expected. It wasn't weakness, it was a shield, held tight with a resolve forged over a lifetime of her casual cruelty. I was waiting. I had been waiting for months for this exact moment. Ever since we were little, Lila had been bathed in a golden light that never seemed to touch me. She was the family's heir, the star around which we all orbited. Her first steps, her first words, her first A on a report card, all were events worthy of grand celebration. I was the shadow, a constant, quiet presence in her periphery. I was the charity case, the daughter of her mother's less fortunate sister, the one who wore Lila's hand-me-downs, dresses that were always a little too big and still smelled faintly of her expensive perfume. Why can't you be more like Lila? That question was the soundtrack to my childhood. It was whispered at every holiday, every family dinner, every birthday party. It was there when Lila won the elementary school spelling bee and I came in third. It was there when she was crowned homecoming queen and I wasn't even on the court. It was there when she got a brand new convertible for her 16th birthday and I inherited my dad's 10-year-old sedan. Each comparison was a small cut, insignificant on its own, but over the years they had accumulated into a network of deep, invisible scars. Her cruelty wasn't always loud and public like this. More often, it was subtle. A dismissive wave of her hand when I tried to join a conversation. A backhanded compliment about how I'd managed to look almost presentable. The way she'd tell a story about a childhood memory, conveniently editing me out of the narrative. But tonight, at her wedding, with all her adoring fans as an audience, it was different. Tonight, it was a deliberate, public execution of my dignity, and tonight, it was personal. The knowledge I held had been a heavy weight in my gut for 3 long months. It started on a Tuesday, at the end of a grueling double shift at The Daily Grind, the downtown cafe where I waitressed to make ends meet. My feet ached, my apron was stained with coffee, and all I could think about was collapsing into my bed. While clearing the last table, I found a thick cream-colored envelope tucked into the booth's cushions. It was unsealed, and the name on the front made my heart skip a beat. Mr. Matthew Carter. Lila's Matthew, her perfect fiancé. My first thought was to call him. My second, more primal instinct, was to look inside. Curiosity, that relentless little devil, won. My hands, still smelling of espresso and cleaning solution, carefully slid the contents out. It wasn't a love letter or a business proposal. It was a stack of court papers. Legal jargon swam before my tired eyes, but certain phrases jumped out, stark and ugly. Wire fraud, securities fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering. There was a long list of plaintiffs, retirees, small business owners, people who had trusted him with their life savings. And at the bottom, there was a mention of a pending criminal case, the details chilling and damning. My hands trembled. I had to sit down, right there in the empty cafe. This wasn't some silly rumor or a bit of gossip. This was a time bomb. Lila's dream man, the charming, successful investment banker she had flaunted at every family event, the man my own mother had sighed over, "Oh, Haley, why can't you find a nice man like Matthew?" was a sophisticated criminal. He was a predator hiding in plain sight. A bitter, dark part of me felt a flicker of satisfaction, but that was quickly extinguished by a wave of genuine shock. My immediate instinct was to protect my cousin. Despite everything, she was family. I pictured myself driving to her pristine condo, the documents in hand, and warning her. I played the scene out in my head. I would tell her what I'd found, show her the proof, and urge her to save herself from this disaster. But I knew exactly how she would react. I could see the dismissive roll of her eyes, the condescending tilt of her head. "Oh, Haley," she would say, her voice dripping with pity. "Are you really that jealous? You found some fake papers and you think you can ruin my happiness with them? It's just sad." She would twist the story, paint me as the villain, and the entire family would rally around her, their golden girl, while I would be cast further into the shadows, the bitter, resentful cousin. The thought of that humiliation was worse than her cruelty at the wedding. So I took a different path. I went home to my small apartment, spread the papers out on my kitchen table, and found the name of the lead detective listed on the documents, Detective Miller. The next morning, my heart pounding, I made the call. Detective Miller was a calm, weary-sounding man who listened patiently as I explained, my voice shaking slightly, what I'd found, and how it had come into my possession. He wasn't surprised. "Matthew Carter," he said with a sigh. "Yeah, we've been building a case against him for the better part of a year. He's slippery, hides his assets well. This file you found, it's a big piece of the puzzle." He asked me to come down to the station. The sterile, impersonal environment of the police precinct felt a world away from Lila's lavish wedding planning. Detective Miller laid out the scale of Matthew's operation. He had stolen millions, leaving a trail of ruined lives in his wake. "What we need," Miller explained, his eyes serious, "is to catch him when he's least expecting it, preferably with some of his shadier business associates present. A big public event would be perfect." He leaned forward. "His wedding, for instance. Can you keep this to yourself, Ms. Monroe? Not a word to anyone. The timing has to be perfect. When you see your moment, you'll send me a text. Just one word." Those 3 months were a special kind of hell. I attended Lila's opulent bridal shower, smiling and nodding as she gushed about her honeymoon in the Maldives, all while knowing her future was a lie. I listened to my aunts and uncles praise Matthew's generosity and success. My teeth clenched so hard my jaw ached. The secret was a burning coal in my stomach. Several times, seeing Lila so blissfully happy, a pang of guilt hit me. Was I doing the right thing? But then she would make a casual, cutting remark, a small reminder of my place in her world, and my resolve would harden like steel. Which brought me to tonight. The reception, the culmination of all her dreams and all my silent endurance. After Lila's vicious toast reached its climax, she finally set the microphone down, a smug, satisfied look on her face. Matthew wrapped an arm around her, smiling indulgently, a partner in her cruelty. The guests were applauding, some enthusiastically, some out of obligation. My moment had arrived. I gripped my wine glass, the cool glass a stark contrast to my burning skin. I watched her, the picture of bridal perfection, basking in the adoration of the crowd. She thought she had won. She thought she had put me in my place, once and for all. Under the cover of the tablecloth, I pulled out my phone. My fingers were steady, my mind strangely calm. The adrenaline that had been building for months had settled into a cold, clear focus. I opened my messages to Detective Miller. There was only one word to type. Now. I pressed send. The message delivered instantly. I slipped the phone back into my purse and took a slow sip of my wine. my eyes never leaving Lila. For a few seconds, nothing happened. The band started up again, launching into a cheesy pop song. Then, with a loud scratch that made everyone jump, the music cut off. The sudden, jarring silence was thick and heavy. All heads turned towards the entrance of the ballroom. The grand double doors swung open with a dramatic thud. 2 uniformed police officers strode into the room. They were large, imposing figures, their polished shoes squeaking on the marble floor. Their faces were impassive, their presence an immediate and shocking disruption to the carefully curated fantasy of the evening. Conversations died in a collective, confused gasp. The officers scanned the stunned crowd, their eyes sharp and focused, sweeping past the tables until they locked onto their target. They moved with a calm, deliberate purpose, weaving through the frozen guests, their path leading directly to the head table. Matthew, who had been halfway through raising his champagne glass for another toast, froze. His charming smile vanished, wiped clean from his face, replaced by a mask of dawning horror and disbelief. The color drained from his face, leaving him pale and sickly under the warm lights of the chandeliers. The lead officer's voice cut through the silence, clear, loud, and authoritative. "Matthew Carter, you are under arrest." He didn't stop there. He methodically listed the charges. "You are being charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, conspiracy to commit money laundering, and grand larceny." Gasps rippled through the room, louder this time, laced with shock and a delicious hint of scandal. Lila's triumphant expression crumbled. It was like watching a porcelain doll shatter in slow motion. Her eyes, wide with confusion, darted from the officers to Matthew. "What is this?" she stammered. "Is this some kind of joke?" Matthew's champagne glass slipped from his numb fingers, shattering on the floor with a loud crash that echoed in the silent room. He tried to speak, to form a denial, but only a choked sound came out. "Matt." Lila's voice was a desperate whisper now, all her earlier bravado gone. "Matt, tell them it's a mistake. Tell them to leave." But Matthew just stared straight ahead as the second officer firmly took his arms and clicked the cold steel of handcuffs around his wrists. The sound was sharp, final. Lila let out a small, strangled sob as her perfect groom, her prize, was turned and led away through the sea of stunned guests. Their whispers now a rising roar of gossip. She stood frozen on the stage, a solitary figure in her white dress, which suddenly looked less like a symbol of joy and more like a shroud. Her perfect wedding day, the event she had lauded over everyone for a year, had imploded in the most spectacular and public way imaginable. While the room buzzed with the frantic energy of a discovered scandal, I quietly set my half-empty wine glass down on the table. I didn't need to say a word. I didn't feel the triumphant joy I thought I might. Instead, there was just a profound, quiet sense of release. It wasn't revenge, it was a rebalancing. The scales, so heavily tipped in her favor for our entire lives, were finally even. I surveyed the tableau of destruction one last time. Lila, a statue of grief. Her parents, their faces a mixture of fury and despair. The guests, a murmuring mob, already dissecting the drama on their phones. I slipped out of the ballroom, unnoticed in the chaos. The cool night air hit my face, a welcome balm on my still-burning cheeks. As I walked away from the glittering lights and the shattered remains of Lila's perfect life, I took the first truly deep breath I had taken in months. The weight was gone. In the quiet of the night, I wasn't the unwanted mess anymore. I was free.